Welcome to Two Open Doors, the podcast that explores our power to open or close the doors of relationship with the important people in our lives. We hope you'll learn from and share your wisdom with our community. Thanks for joining us. I think most of us would conclude that our relationships can be a great source of meaning in our lives. We'd also likely agree that well-functioning relationships can make us happy. Are meaning and happiness synonymous? If not, how do they differ? In this episode, we'll consider how meaning and happiness are related and how each of these concepts plays into relationship. Even though happiness and meaningfulness are terms that are often used interchangeably in common speech, they're actually seen as distinct things in the psychology community. Both play a role in our contentment and satisfaction with life, so it's worth considering the distinction between them. In some respects, happiness is the simpler and more elemental concept. Happiness is a transient state of pleasure. It exists in the present moment. Happiness can also be seen as a transient state of subjective well-being or positive emotional state and overall life satisfaction. When we're happy, we experience an internal state of well-being. In terms of neurobiology, we're happy when we're in a state of homeostasis, which is a state in which all of our internal needs are satisfied. In that state, all of our lights are green. As our internal needs or goals are met, we receive a neural reward mediated by a release of the hormone dopamine. There may be two different sorts of happiness. First is hedonic happiness, which occurs when an experience directly stimulates a dopamine-mediated reward state in the brain, that is, pleasure, in response to goal fulfillment. And there's also eudaimonic happiness, or happiness that comes from meaningful pursuits, and which may indirectly result in a pleasurable reward state. Meaning is achieved less directly than is happiness. I believe that when we experience something as meaningful, we also receive an internal reward, but what triggers that reward is less direct than the sorts of experiences that produce happiness. Per researchers Logan George and Crystal Park, there are three broad sources of meaning. First is leading a life that makes sense, that is, a life that is comprehensible to a person. Second is having life goals that are meaningful to a person. And third is believing that one's existence matters to others. These traits play out in two arenas, in our relationships and in our occupation. Here, occupation means more than simply one's employment. It includes hobbies or other creative endeavors. This, and other studies, find that relationships tend to be more consequential in promoting a sense of meaning than is occupation. In the essentialist view of the world, things and events come with an inherent meaning or significance, and that meaning is part of the essence of the event or thing. In contrast, in the existentialist view of the world, individuals create and attribute meaning to the things and events. There is no concept of essence. I'm an existentialist in that I don't see meaning as implicit and latent. I see it as part of my personal responsibility to assign significance to what I do and experience. From the existential perspective, the process of meaning-making involves making sense of challenges and other experiences encountered in life by fitting them into existing beliefs and goals, or by modifying those beliefs and goals to accommodate new circumstances. Why bother distinguishing between the essentialist and existentialist viewpoints? Well, I think that one's viewpoint affects how one participates in experiences in life, most certainly including one's relationships. An essentialist focuses on receiving the meaning of things from external sources, such as culture or religious organizations. In contrast, I see existentialists as taking a more personal and internal approach to discerning and attaching a meaning to the things we experience. In the realm of relationships, that suggests to me that essentialists might be more inclined to stay within the confines of traditional forms of relationships, while existentialists might be more inclined to create and participate in the sorts of designer relationships that best suit them. In taking that kind of an approach myself, I see myself as assuming a high degree of both personal freedom and personal responsibility. For existentialists, meaning is personal. It involves interpreting the world, which intuition helps us with. Per the psychologist Joel Voss, there are 5 broad sources of meaning. First is material sources, things like money, possessions, success, sexual experiences, etc. Second is self-growth. self-knowledge, acceptance, expression, reliance, care, and development. Third is social sources, connections with family and friends. Fourth is transcendence, purpose, morality, religion, or spirituality. And fifth is presence, being fully alive, connected with others in the world, and exercising freedom. I believe that these few observation-based categories make a lot of intuitive sense as well. They capture and group the world of possible kinds of human experiences, be they physical or psychological or social or transcendental, that is, involving things that transcend the boundaries of an individual. I see all of these facets of meaning as applying not just to our individual personal experiences, but also to the things that we experience in relationship with others. As such, these categories give us a lens through which we can examine our relationships to see how those relationships bring us meaning. Meaning comes through pursuing goals that are greater than, that is, outside ourselves. Meaning can be found in deep relationships, in altruism, and in purposeful self-expression. Hedonic pleasure alone is probably not conducive to happiness. Relationships satisfy our need for relatedness, for a sense of belonging, and for inclusion in and support from family. The psychiatrist Irvin Yalom provides a useful perspective on the existential approach to therapy, which was originated by Rollo May. Yalom suggests that we engage with people we're drawn to and who nurture us. Such people can bring rich meaning into our lives. That seems like sensible advice. Roy Baumeister, a psychology professor, claims that, quote, a happy life and a meaningful life have some differences. His team has identified 5 differences. First, happy people satisfy their wants and needs, but that satisfaction doesn't necessarily give people a sense of meaning. Second, happiness involves a focus on the fleeting present moment, while meaning involves thoughts about past, present, and future, and how those are connected. Third is that meaningfulness comes from giving to others, while happiness comes from what they give to you. Fourth is that meaningful lives involve challenges and stress, but those can reduce happiness. And fifth is that self-expression is important to meaning, but not necessarily to happiness. When I digest all the preceding observations about happiness and meaning, I'm led to mentally conjure up a graphical representation of how the sources of meaning are related. On the left side of the diagram, we can place sources of meaning that are available to us when we focus inward, on our pleasure and our maintaining homeostasis. These include the many material sources of meaning, such as possessions, power, and sexual experiences, as well as our potential internal psychic sources of meaning, such as the various aspects of self-growth. On the right side of the diagram, we might depict the potential sources of meaning that have their roots outside of us. That is, what we can engage with through an outward focus. These sources of meaning include all of our social connections, family, friends, lovers, and acquaintances. They also include the big picture transcendence perspectives that can convey meaning, things such as a sense of personal purpose, or moral behavior, or religion or spirituality. As we've noted in many prior episodes, religion and spirituality are different. Religion revolves around believing and living in accordance with a specific set of beliefs, while spirituality is about being aware of and living in accordance with felt connection to others and to the world around us. In the middle of the diagram, we can depict presence as a source of meaning. Presence is what allows us to move from within ourselves to connect with the people and things that lie outside us. Given this role as a channel, we can include left-to-right arrows in our conceptual diagram to suggest how we can pass through presence to expand from our internal sources of meaning to our external sources of meaning. Being present allows us to fully savor and experience life. It describes the condition of living in the moment in which we can exercise our freedom of choice. I see presence as an essential doorway to connection with the rich world of meaning that lies outside us. Certainly, in intimate relationships, it is true presence of the two partners that enables them to connect fully with one another. To learn more about Two Open Doors and to engage with our community, I'd like to invite you to visit the Two Open Doors private Facebook group for posts and discussion, and the Two Open Doors meetup group for events. I also invite you to contact me directly by writing to me at Claude, Claude, @twoopendoors.com. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll use your inputs to guide my work on future blog posts and podcast episodes. Thanks for visiting Two Open Doors.